The Voskhod was a spacecraft built by the Soviet Union's space program for human spaceflight as part of the Voskhod program. It was a development of and a follow-on to the Vostok spacecraft. Voskhod 1 was used for a 3-manned flight, whereas Voskhod 2 had a crew of 2. They consisted of a spherical descent module, which housed the astronauts and instruments, and a conical equipment module, which contained propellant and the engine system. Voskhod was superseded by the Soyuz spacecraft in 1967. Design. The Voskhod spacecraft was essentially a Vostok spacecraft that had a backup solid-fuel retro-rocket added to the top of the descent module. The ejection seat was removed for more space and 2 or 3 crew couches were added to the interior at a 90-degree angle to that of the Vostok crew position. There was no provision for crew escape in the event of a launch or landing emergency. Lack of space meant that the 3 crew members of Voskhod 1 did not wear spacesuits. Both crew members wore spacesuits on the Voskhod 2 mission, as it involved an EVA and used an inflatable airlock. This allowed cosmonaut Alexei Leonov to exit and re-enter the craft. It was needed because the vehicle's electrical and environmental systems were air-cooled, and complete capsule depressurization would lead to overheating. The airlock weighed 250 kilograms, was 700 millimeters in diameter, 770 millimeters high when collapsed for launch. When extended in orbit, it was 2.5 meters long, had an internal diameter of 1.0 meters and an external diameter of 1.2 meters. The second crew member wore a spacesuit as a precaution against accidental descent module depressurization. The airlock was jettisoned after use. The lack of ejection seats meant that the Voskhod crew would return to Earth inside the spacecraft, unlike the Vostok cosmonauts ejected and parachuted down separately. Because of this, a new landing system was developed, which added a small solid-fuel rocket to the parachute lines. It fired as the descent module neared touchdown, providing a softer landing. A backup solid-fuel retro-rocket was added to the top of the descent module. The original Vostok spacecraft only had one liquid-fuel retro-rocket. A backup was not needed since its supplies lasted for a 10-day flight, which would allow for re-entry by orbital decay if the retro-rocket failed. This spacecraft was carried into orbit by the Voskhod rocket, also developed from the earlier Vostok rocket and ultimately derived from the R-7 ICBM. Vostok 3 kV, also known as Voskhod, adaptation of the Vostok spacecraft for 3 cosmonauts. This version flew twice, on 6 October 1964 unmanned and on 12 October 1964 manned as Voskhod 1. Basic data: crew size 3, endurance 14.0 days. Overall length 5.0 meters. Maximum diameter 2.4 meters. Total mass 5,682 kilogram. Propellant mass 362 kilogram. RCS total impulse not available. Primary engine thrust 15.83 kilonewtons. Main engine propellants nitrous oxide amine. Total spacecraft delta V 215 meters per second. Power batteries 24.0 kilowatts total. Re-entry module crew size 3. Diameter 2.3 meters. Total mass 2,900 kilogram. Attitude control none. Environment oxygen plus nitrogen at 1 atmosphere. Controls as Vostok 3 kiloamperes. Navigation indicator Globosync navigation instrument version 3. Landing system. Sphere made ballistic re-entry, with shield side seeking correct orientation by virtue of the center of gravity being aft of the center of the sphere. Parachute. Single with suspended retro-rocket package for soft landing. Crew stayed within the capsule. Equipment module length 2.3 meters. Maximum diameter 2.4 meters. Total mass 2,300 kg. Propellant mass 275 kg. Reaction control system thrusters not available. Propellant cold gas specific impulse not available. Total impulse not available. Retro rockets thrust 15.83 kilonewtons. Propellant nitrous oxide amine specific impulse 266 s delta V 155 meters per second. Power batteries 24.0 kilowatts total 0.20 kilowatts average. Auxiliary retro-rocket module. Length 0.6 meters. Maximum diameter 0.3 meters. Total mass 143 kilograms. Propellant mass 87 kilograms. Thrust 117.7 kilonewtons. Propellant solid specific impulse 224 s delta V 60 meters per second. Voskhod 3 kd. This version flew twice, on the 22nd of February 1965 unmanned and on the 18th of March 1965 manned as the Voskhod 2 spacecraft. Re-entry module. Re-entry module Voskhod SAR, also known as Spusky Mia Parrot Sharak. Crew size 2. Length 2.3 meters. Diameter 2.3 meters. Mass 2,900 kilogram. Heat shield mass 837 kilogram. Recovery equipment 151 kilogram. Parachute deploys at 2.5 kilometers altitude. Crew lands in spacecraft. Touchdown rocket softens landing. Ballistic re-entry acceleration 8 grams. Equipment module Voskhod PA, also known as Preborniotsk. Length 2.25 meters. Diameter 2.43 meters. Mass 2,300 kilogram. Equipment in pressurized compartment. RCS propellants cold gas. RCS propellants 20 kg. Main engine 397 kg. Main engine thrust 15.83 kilonewtons. Main engine propellants nitrous oxide amine. Main engine propellant mass 275 kg. Main engine ISP 266 s. Main engine burn time 1 minute. Spacecraft delta V 155 meters per second. Electrical system. Batteries. Electric system 0.20 average kW. Electric system 24.0 kilowatts H. Auxiliary retro-rocket module Voskhod KDU, also known as engine unit length 0.60 meters, diameter 0.25 meters, mass 143 kilogram, engine thrust 118 kilonewtons. Engine propellants, solid propellant mass 87 kilogram. Engine ISP 224 s. Spacecraft delta V 60 meters per second. General data. Total mass 5,682 kilogram. Total length 5.0 meters. Endurance supplies for 14 days in orbit. Launch vehicle Voskhod 11A57. Typical orbit 163 km by 591 km, 64.8 inclinating. Bibliography. Siddiqui, Asif A. Challenge to Apollo, the Soviet Union and the Space Race, 1945 to 1974, USA, NASA, ISBN 17803933016.